I guess just welcome back and thank you so much for your support with either buying a shirt or donating $25 or more. And we just really missed the human connection. John knows and Martha knows. We've done screenings with them in their cities. And so there's always like, survivors stand up and share their stories. People ask questions. It's just a different thing than the way we've been doing panels online without seeing the audience. So this is your chance to talk about the film and how it's moved you and changed anything about the way you think about mental health. So the floor is really yours for the audience to talk. So who wants to go first? What I always say is, if it's better if one person goes first and is vulnerable, because then it opens the way for vulnerability for the rest of the group. So don't be shy. The floor is yours.
I'd be happy to speak. I'm Janice. This is my 4th time seeing the movie. I can't get through the movie without tears. I was on meds for more than 30 years. All different meds, of course, including 17 years on Zyprexa. I've been off the Zyprexa for a year, been off the last of my drugs since June. I've been on disability since my early 40s. I'm now 67. The withdrawal has been hell. Mentally, I'm sharper than I have ever been. Emotionally, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Most of the bad is because of the physical symptoms. The worst for me is that I've now developed tardive dyskinesia. I'm in constant pain from that, constant distress. It hurts to eat. Nobody understands. As probably we all know, nobody wants to listen to us or believe us. The few supports that I have, when they can hardly wait to get off the phone, and when they get off the phone, they can go on with their lives. I'm still stuck with the withdrawal symptoms, the pain, the whatever. The isolation is unbelievable, and Angie, Nicole, Laura Delano, Robert Whitaker, Dave Cope, probably lots of others. You guys are my lifeline. So I thank you for the movie, and I just thank you for a chance to share. Unfortunately, the tardive dyskinesia you don't hear much about, even among the withdrawal community. I had no idea it was going to happen. My doctors don't buy it. So anyway, just thanks for letting me share, and thanks for doing the movie.
Janice, when you say that you cry through the movie, what is it about the movie that you resonate with the most?
That those of us who are going through getting off the drugs are in this together. We are a community unlike any other. And I think a lot of the tears are almost a relief in knowing that no matter how alone I feel, a lot of the time when I see you guys and hear you, I know that I'm not alone. And I think the other thing that really brings up the tears is realizing, why in the hell did it take me 30 years to realize the damage that was being done to me, the side effects. During the time I was on meds, I was in either inpatient or outpatient hospitalization more than 20 times. That ain't success. How anybody convinced me that these drugs were helping me in any way is totally beyond me.
Thank you for open sharing, Janice. You almost bringing me to tears just hearing it,
Janice, can you explain, you said you're disbelieved about the tardive dyskinesia. How does it manifest? How do you experience it?
Severe teeth grinding, severe jaw clenching, biting my tongue. My tongue's like hamburger most of the time. That's where the real pain in eating comes from. I tend to sit with my head either like this or like this. I I have to consciously, like when I'm on a Zoom call, I will make sure I keep my head straight. And even my very best friend says, well, you just think you can't control it. You just have to think about just not grinding your teeth, not clenching.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
No, it's like, what is it about the definition of uncontrollable muscle movements that people don't understand? Uncontrollable is kind of a pretty inclusive word.
Yeah. Well, one of the filmmakers just joined us. Lynn, I'll just fill you in really quick. We just ended the film, and Janice just shared her personal story, you know, the ones we miss so much in the audience.
Oh,
She just was so vulnerable and shared that the movie has been like a lifeline. She watched it like 5 times.
thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Lynn, for doing the movie.
Oh, well, right now is why as Angie said, we have missed so much seeing people face to face. So thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, and we got 2 hands raised. Bran, do you want to talk? I can either unmute you. You can come on camera, whatever you want.
Whatever is fine.
Okay.
I'm cool with being on camera.
Okay.
I guess I want to thank you guys because like Janice, you know, I feel very, very alone in this. And you know, this is pretty new to me. Just found out yesterday that this started in 2002. So I had no idea how long it'd been. You know, as far as what medications I've been on, I have to look through my insurance records. You know, I mean, it's just the uncovering is like, you know, you get hit with grief on like an hourly basis. And, you know, and then there's the anger, and then there's the, you know, I trusted you. And then there's, you know, it just kind of snowballs. So, you know, I just thank you guys so much. I follow you on, you know, the YouTube videos and that sort of thing, the panel discussions. I've seen the movie twice now. I read a lot of books. I do a lot of research, and you guys have been really helpful. So thank you very much.
For joining us. Who'd like to go next?
I'd be happy to.
Your connection.
I don't know how to raise my hands. So
That's
I'll
okay.
just-
Oh, I recognize it's John.
John, stay.
I
is
can't
it?
see him, but I hear his voice.
Your connection's kind of bad, John.
Oh.
I think.
Oh, okay.
Just try talking.
Ah.
Let's see.
Can you hear me now, or?
You're kind of
see
like
me
a
now?
robot and frozen.
Hey, okay, why don't you come back to me?
Oh, there
I'll
you
see
are.
if I can get the kids to stop.
It's like good for a second and then not good. I don't know. You could try.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Go on
right,
with someone else.
We got 3 people raising their hands. We got Bran, Martha, or Joel. Who wants to go first? I think Bran already went, so I'm gonna put her hand down. Yep.
I'll
Joel.
go. Just
Oh, Martha. Okay, go.
echo, you know, what Bran and Janice said. You know, I took psych drugs for 20 years. And I always say, you know, when I sought help for what I'd call like emotional distress, I wasn't disabled and I wasn't suicidal. And 3 weeks later, I was both. And I have been for 27 years now. But I've been off everything for 3 years. And, you know, I think, Janice, when you said, like, why did I believe it? Like, when I went for help, I was feeling myself that I was like hopeless and worthless and helpless. And then I had basically a doctor tell me, you'll never work again, raise your children, or live on your own. And I believed it because it's what I was telling myself. And I believed it for a long time. And then, you know, the anger, I relate to that, Bran. You know, the anger, like I watch this movie and I cry and then I get really angry. And, you know, that's affected relationships. You know, it's affected
Yeah.
everything. So.
Nobody wants to listen to our anger, do they?
And, you know, I think I've given up on finding help from the medical profession But to me, it would mean so much if they just, I've heard, I'm sorry you went through that, but that doesn't cut it. I want to hear, I'm sorry I did this to you, or we did this to you. You know, saying I'm sorry you went through that's kind of dismissive. I want them to accept responsibility for destroying lives.
I went to my doctor last week. I have an umbilical hernia. And at the end of the visit, she wanted to put me on Vistarol for anxiety and sleep. I didn't ask her for anything for anxiety or sleep.
Nicole, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Martha actually did get that apology from a psychiatrist. Not, I'm sorry this happened to you, but I'm sorry this was done to you, and the taking responsibility. And it was incredibly healing. I mean, I walked out of the office and sat in the car and just wept for a very long time. It makes me, yeah. So I wish that everybody could get that, because you all deserve it.
Everybody's crying. I love it. I love it.
Sorry, I
Don't-
didn't be like
Don't stop
Debbie
it.
Downer.
No, it's feeling. It's so good. We did this in the in-person screenings, and people would say, "I'm sorry," and I'd say, "Don't apologize. Please cry." Oh. John, you want to try again?
Yeah, can you see me now?
Yeah, but
Okay.
there's a delay.
Okay.
Just go for it. We'll see what happens.
Sometimes, John, just speak and then the audio is fine if you turn the video off, I think.
Okay. Well, I can't thank Lynn and Angie and you guys enough. I mean, this film has been so healing for me. I mean, just the validation of what I've been through, how I was misled. Janice, I've also been on medications for 30 years. Went on them freshman year in college, and I'm tapering right now, and it is
John, it's terrible. I can't.
really
I can't, John. It's terrible.
difficult
John.
thing to do.
John.
It was so hard.
Oh, John. John lives in the
Life is
mountains.
improving in a lot of ways, but it's so hard. And
You can't hear me.
one of my worst. Oh, really?
Yeah, John, we can't hear you. It's terrible.
Okay.
Is there any way you can maybe call in?
I'll turn off my video.
I don't know what he said. Oh.
Is this any better? Can you hear
That's
me?
terrible.
now?
Try again.
Okay.
I can hear myself on his end delaying. John, we're gonna go to the next person with their hand raised and hope that you can come join us again, maybe from your phone outside in the driveway. John lives in the mountains, so it's probably pretty bad. Joel, you had your hand up. Joel, do you want to share?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Again, well, my story started about 4 years ago. My son was a 19-year-old combat engineer in the Marine Corps, and in front of me committed suicide with a AK-47. And I guess the problem that I had with the mental health in Rogue Valley is that they had me on so many meds, so high doses that I was masking over all the pain that I was supposed to be feeling from that loss. They put me They locked me up in a psych ward and medicated me rather than talk to me about what was going on. And so I think that this movie, I've seen it twice, and of all the therapy that I've had, this movie's probably hits home the most. I was raised in a logging camp, so showing emotion isn't something that I was raised to do. But I just want to thank you guys for inviting me and letting me be a part of this.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joel. I'm so sorry about your son.
Thank you. I just think that there's more out there than meds to deal with problems with PTSD, whether it's PTSD or whatever's going on. I think that peer support, there's other avenues out there. That's all.
Totally. Yeah. All right, John, you want to try again?
Yeah, I'm on my phone now. Is any better?
Better.
Oh, much better.
Yes. Okay. Floor first.
Okay. Well, Janice, I just wanted to say you're not alone. I mean, I've been on medications for 30 years as well. And, you know, I've requested my records from my psychiatrist and saw just all the crazy combinations he tried when he was just treating side effects of other medications. And I'm now tapering, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I mean, the film has meant so much to me because, I mean, the community of people that I've met through the film. I was fortunate enough to do a screening here in my community that Angie and Lynn were at. And one doctor in the audience stood up and she said, and I'll never forget this. And she said, she was a primary care physician, and she said, I see patients on these medications every day. And she was in tears, and she said, and I had no idea that they could cause such harm. And that one statement, I just hang on to that because, and I've thought of reaching out to that doctor. We live in a small community, and I'm going to, but that moment was so precious to me, the validation that I can't, I'm afraid to reach out to her and have her be seduced by the medical model and think that I was a one-off, or that one moment in time she had, you know, an enlightenment and a repentance, and that it didn't hold. I'm sure it did. I'm sure every day. I mean, I kind of feel for her because every day she's still seeing these patients on all these meds, you know, probably every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. And she's thinking about the film and thinking about me. And I'm sure I made her job a whole lot harder. But you know, one of the most difficult symptoms for me during withdrawal has been the emotional blunting. And I well up with tears each time. I mean, I can't feel happiness. I can't feel sadness. I intellectually know I love my 6-year-old son and my 4-year-old daughter, and I act as though I love them, but I can't feel the love for them. It's like that moment when Dave in the film says he can't feel the love for his dog and he can't feel the love for his wife, and I'm in that space. So for me to even well up in tears, even though I've seen the film probably 7-8 times now, I always do, that's powerful for me, because I can't wait till I get the emotional blunting out of the way, and I can just cry, and I can feel joy. And I mean, life is improving a lot, slowly, but yeah, I mean, I say it a million times, but I feel like for 30 years I was mentally raped. It's like I went on a date with a psychiatrist who was drunk on the information that he was taught in medical school. And he didn't mean to rape my mind, but he did. And no matter how much he didn't mean to, that doesn't mean he didn't. And I'm determined to not let other people's minds get raped. And so I'm going to be big on advocacy. I mean, just wait once I'm healed and I can do more than I'm doing already.
Well, Lynn hopped off and Wendy hopped on, the other filmmaker. So Wendy, I'll just fill you in. There's been really open, vulnerable sharing so far, and people sharing their personal experience the way that they did when we had in-person screenings. And we've all cried together. So I don't know if you want to say something and just say hello to everyone.
Sure. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, yeah. Hi. I'm really sorry. I just got the news of this today and I have an appointment really soon. So I'm really just hopping on to say hello and thank you to everyone for watching the film and participating. And I just heard what John was saying and oh my gosh, hello, John. I know you really well, but that was so intense. And I'm so glad to hear that you do feel like you're feeling a bit better. But yes, we've heard, unfortunately, many stories like yours. And but every time I hear it, it's so powerful and horrible. And yeah, we just have to make this stop. Nobody should go through this. It's just not right that anybody has that experience. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just listening. I probably have to go in a few minutes or start driving and I might cut off, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you for making the movie, Wendy. Look at all the healing that's happening just right here.
Yeah, it is. It's inspiring.
Well, who wants to go next? We have a question. How about, I'm going to ask this of Nicole. Maybe she can answer it. The question is, I don't have a camera that works, but I have a friend who is on Restoril, which is a benzodiazepine for sleep. She has been in a treatment program for depression and was labeled medication resistant. She has also been suicidal due to the medication. She believes that the medication is the only thing that will help her. She's in therapy as well, but I believe she wants a quick fix. I'd like her to see this film, but I don't think she's ready. I wonder if there are any resources you'd suggest for me to send her.
I'm trying to think of something for somebody who's really new to the information. I mean, there's a lot of resources now that exist that didn't before. But I'm not sure. I'm trying to put myself back in the place of when I took meds and I believed in them and, you know, something that might not be too shocking to start with. I mean, there's lots of books and people's personal stories on YouTube. I don't know. John, what do you think? Can you think of anything that would be good for somebody fresh to the idea?
Yeah, you know, I've been struggling with this because I attend a brain injury support group. And of the 25 people that are in that, every single one of them is on a psych med. And almost all of them have the same symptoms that I do. And so some of them have seen the film, but I've only shown it to the ones that I felt were ready for it. I mean, we have one young man who's, 28 and is polydrugged, and his psychiatrist was tapering him off of his benzo, and this was a year ago, and I said, Chris, I think that he's doing it way too fast. I think he's making you sicker. And he ended up getting hospitalized because he went off so fast. And now, and the hospital, of course, polydrugged him and put him on a bunch more drugs. And he's in a very emotionally unstable place right now. So I struggle with wanting to show him the film, to show him the exit, to show him that what's happening to him is not his fault. It's not his disease. It's not his, but at the same time, I know he could have a sense of rage that, that might make him say, I don't care what they say in the film. I don't care what John says. I'm going to just stop my meds. I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore. So if anybody else has ideas on how to ease people in.
What
or
helped
maybe-
me get started was the article, a friend shared with me the article about Laura Delano from the New Yorker. And it was shared to me sort of as a throwaway. And the person who shared it with me has never actually read the whole article. But for me, that was the gateway. And then I started looking online and I read Anatomy of an Epidemic. And but that was, for me, that was the start, was the Laura Delano article.
I also have a
What
suggestion.
about peer support, Angie?
Oh, Joel, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what about peer support? If that's who was able to help me the most, because they're an entity that's not related to giving out meds and all that. They're a different, they're a neutral party.
I like
So
what
that might be an avenue too.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
would say I've been involved in peer support for quite a while, like even nationally. You have to be careful because co-optation of peer support is really out there. Like in the VA, the peer specialist can't tell you to get off meds.
I was gonna say, if you're not talking, maybe everybody press mute so the sound is really good, because it's kind of, I can hear like an echo or something. Okay, keep going, Martha, because I love this subject.
No, I mean, I peer support saved my life,
Mine too.
but the medical people have, there's a lot of peer supporters out there that think their job is to get people to take drugs. In the VA, the peer specialists are told, you can't ever have a discussion about, a problem with treatment. It's absurd. But finding good peer support, like from a peer run organization instead of connected to maybe a clinical organization, might be the way to go.
And one thing I was gonna mention.
All I know,
Oh, go ahead, Joel. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
All I know is that I'm a disabled vet in the VA system, and if it wasn't for peer support 4 years ago, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So, and maybe I misunderstood the question, but I just thought that might be an avenue to reach out to.
Yeah, no, of course, it's a really good.
For that person.
I'm so glad you said it. It's good.
I'm sorry.
Real quick, I was gonna say, last night we had a screening with David Cohen from the film, and it was with a bunch of social work students, and somebody asked a very similar question, and David's answer to it was, just tell them to read the FDA pamphlet, the whole thing, from page 1 to page 36. Just make them read the drug that is going into their body. That might be enough. So that would be my suggestion for the answer to that question. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, real quick. I mean, I can add specific benzo resources and maybe you could look them over yourself and see, as the person who wants to recommend them, if you think they're too much, or so there's benzoinfo.com, which is Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. There is theinnercompass.org. There is the Ashton Manual. The Ashton Manual is by a physician and it's very clinical. So that might be something that somebody in that position would take more to heart. If you give a YouTube video of just a person saying these drugs harmed me, it might be easier for someone to dismiss than it is for something written by an actual physician. And then, there's an article in, what was it, Angie, Psychiatric Times, or called Online Communities for Drug Withdrawal, What Can We Learn? That's a really good article. And then Benzo Buddies. I mean, sometimes just sending people to the forum and say, like, look how many people are on here, and they're all saying the same thing. then there's tons of Facebook groups as well for benzodiazepines as well. So you could just encourage this person to join the support groups as like an anonymous visitor and tell them to read and see what's going on with other people who are reporting injury from these medications.
I was just going to add, I mean, I was one of those people where I felt like it's almost like it was almost like when you're in the mental health system, it's almost like being a Christian. I mean, you believe in your doctors and in your psychologists, much the way, fervently, just like, a Christian would believe their pastor and would believe in their faith and their religion. So to have someone come along and say, your drugs might be your problem, is like someone coming along and saying to you, well, Christ didn't really exist, that it's all just a fable. And it's that same, when you're a patient and when your eyes haven't been opened yet, it's that same, in the gut feeling, like when someone were to say to you that your meds are your problem and your doctor may not know what he's doing. And I mean, you get so angry at that person, and you get so defensive. That's where I think the whole pill shaming phrase comes about. Don't pill shame me for my meds that I need. So I've been there, so I understand it, and I understand. So it's an uphill battle when it's, when I'm trying to awaken people, because it's me against their psychiatrist, me against their psychologist, me against cultural norms, me against what maybe their parents are telling them. So it's an uphill battle, and I think the film is really the only ultimate way to get over the hump of once somebody has warmed up to the idea that meds might be the issue, the film just condenses it all into 75 minutes with the emotion and the data. So the film is critical in this kind of, because process, this awakening process.
How did I forget too that the FDA actually just released a black box warning on benzodiazepines? So that would be, that I think would be huge too. You just show it to the person and say, well, the FDA has just come out and said these are actually quite dangerous. You might want to read this information.
Yeah.
Martha?
I've just heard like the black box warning on SSRIs, antidepressants for young people. It's limited to young people because of the advocacy that went around that, but I think it applies to all of us. I don't know, maybe when I was young, I was more impulsive than I am now, but I never thought of suicide till I was on those drugs.
John, in response to what you just said, I had a very similar experience. I remember like a roommate telling me when I was on the medications that I didn't need them, and I felt like so judged and like, oh, he doesn't understand what's my problem or what's wrong with me, or how dare he, speak on the medicine I need for my health. I really thought I was helping myself by them calling it mental health too. You feel like you're taking care of yourself. You're going to the doctor. You're doing what you're supposed to do to be well. But there's a talk on, it's a TED talk, and it's called Willful Blindness. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's one of my favorite ones because it sort of explains like how human beings can even know something that is they're told the truth and they still deny it because it's like it's too painful, or it's too the cognitive dissonance that it takes to accept that you you know, believed in something that was a sham for so long, or that you were tricked, or people will be presented with information that is true and they still reject it. So I think that's a good TED Talk to watch if anyone hasn't seen it and you want to understand why people, you know, even resist information when you have science and proof and evidence to show that what you're saying is true, but they aren't ready to hear it yet.
Part of the process for me was to learn that I am not my diagnosis, and then to take that a step further, and I reject the idea of a diagnosis. I'm not broken. I'm not mentally ill. I'm not depressed. I'm simply a human being.
So true.
Yeah, that brokenness. I mean, I for years thought maybe I wasn't cut out to be a dad because of my mental illness. I was just I was told that it was in my genetics, and I didn't want to, I knew how awful it felt to feel really depressed. I didn't want to bring, kids into this world that would inherit my awful genes and have to suffer like I had suffered. Thank goodness my wife was insistent, and we have our 2 kids. But that brokenness narrative, it's, I mean, psychologists and psychiatrists promote it. I mean, when I would bring that up, like, well, because I had many, many sessions with my psychologist and my psychiatrist, I said, well, I don't know if I have the ability or energy, or if it's right for me to have kids because I've got these disorders. And the answer was always kind of a, yeah, they never said, no, you're a good person. You'd make a great dad. You can, you should go forward and try to have kids. Maybe they would give you a sense of purpose in life. It was what kind of a acknowledgement, like, yeah, you have your illness and we all have to kind of make the best with what we've been given, and we all have our challenges, was basically the message I got.
Fran, you want to talk?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something. I read a blog the other day in Mad in America, and it was by a woman who had lived experience with, psych meds and that sort of thing, and come off as very articulate. But she mentioned something about sanctuary trauma, which really, really resonated with me. And I was just wondering if anybody could comment on that.
I did not read that. Can you share more? Can you share with us?
I might be able to find the link. I copied it.
I think I just found it, but I didn't read it. So could you give us the gist of it?
It was a woman, and she was a little bit older than me, I think, but she talked about waking up after 20 years. And, I really, really, really know what that feels like. I mean, suddenly, I wasn't a kid anymore. And my children had grown up at some point that I, kind of had them in my head as perpetual teenagers. And my youngest son got married last month and mentioned to me, Mom, I'm almost 30. And it was like, oh my God, you are. What happened? And, we go to these places, we go to our doctors, we place our trust in these people. We go to our therapists, we take the medications, we do what we're told to do because we're told to trust these people because they know better than us. And they're smarter and they're, more equipped, that sort of thing. Anyways, this woman spoke, and I can't remember her name, so please forgive me, the author of this person, because it was a wonderfully written blog. I had Googled sanctuary trauma. It talked about how it was in relations to Vietnam. And, I'm not a veteran. I honor those who are, but I don't have that experience. I do know what it feels like to know that everywhere you turn for help, nobody is listening and nobody will help. And, so yeah. I don't know a great deal about it. I have a lot more, investigating to do, but it was just a concept that just kind of struck me, that was, yeah, that was kind of what I feel like I'm going through right now.
What in the reading though, what was the definition of sanctuary trauma?
It was basically, as I just explained, it's basically, when, you go into some place of refuge and you're rejected or you are somehow abused. It's like the experience of, children or, adults or whatever who have been sexually traumatized by priests or whatever. I think that is a form of sanctuary trauma. And that would be the most, literal definition I can give because it involves church. So
Yeah. No, I can really relate to that because like in the film, if you saw that scene where I'm talking to Doc V and I say I feel like I'm waking up from a nightmare, that's very much how it felt. Like I didn't realize I was in withdrawal until I was 5 days off of the medication. So I didn't know anything about groups. I didn't know anything about that there was a withdrawal syndrome that came with meds. I had no idea. And then I Googled it on like day 5 and I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know this was a thing, and then one link led to another and I was reading and then that led to another thing. And then I read Anatomy and Epidemic. Well, I used the audiobook. I couldn't read at that point. And I remember just like walking down the hallway, like my mind like blew up. Like, wait a minute, wait, does this mean I'm not mentally ill and I never was? Oh my God, it's like your brain just implodes on itself. But I remember another moment where it was really scary when I said to myself, oh my God, wait, there's no pill for me to take. There's nobody's gonna fix me. My brain is like, my nervous system is completely shredded. There's nowhere for me to go to get help. So like either I'm gonna heal from this or I'm gonna die from this. I'm not really sure which way it's gonna go because it was so severe. But yeah, this and the second thing I wanted to say about kind of what you're talking about is like I'm 5 years off now, but those old records are still in there. So I still think like, see, I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to amount to anything, or that you're like yesterday. This is what happened yesterday. Somebody hit my bike. I wasn't on it. Okay. But they ran into my bike and I was literally so upset. It was because like, I've been under a lot of stress, we have all these panels and I'm always having to talk about my stuff and it can weigh on you, So it was just like one of those moments where it's like, God, another thing, like I can't handle any more stress, So this guy hits my bike. I start crying and I start walking off. And I'm just really upset and I'm crying. And then I have this in my head, Angie, you can't walk down the street and cry. People call the police on people that do that. They're going to think you're having a mental health crisis or something. So I put my mask on, thank God, because that kind of covered my face a little bit because I was having a moment, But so those things are like still in there. All that trauma from being a patient and being told like you're not going to amount to anything, it's still in my head and it's like really hard to get rid of. It's a second layer of trauma that we have to cope with,
Yeah, I think I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. And my dad was on psych medications. And I think retrospectively, that's probably what caused a lot of his anger and distance towards me. But, in society today, it's like, I think humans are always looking for a source of wisdom, right? A source of guidance, like, someone to go to for advice as to whether to take path A or path B, or, and when we're young, especially, in that 20-something range, college range, you can feel really lost. Like, you don't know what to major in, or you don't know if you should go to college, or you don't know if you should stay with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and the solution that modern society has presented us with is to go see a psychologist or to go see a psychiatrist. Unless you're in the faith community where you might go and talk to your pastor, the default is to go talk to a professional, a mental health professional. So I think we are all, that's so unfortunate. It should be your peers. It should be a friend that you trust, or a mentor to help you, guide you on your way, rather than somebody who's going to charge you $300 an hour to give you what you think is advice, the right advice, and medication. Often, the roads lead to medication so often.
What I miss the most is credibility. I think that's the worst thing they took from me, is now I, am persona non grata, no matter, if I go to the emergency room with a broken arm, I get put in the observation ward. If I, raise an issue of, I don't know, something legal, I automatically am at a disadvantage, no matter, what, if I'm, in what seat, and I have, no ability to represent myself in a manner that is accepted and respected and appreciated by others around me, because, I am a mental patient. So,
I've been the identified psychiatric patient in my family since probably my mid to late 20s. And sometimes I look at the rest of my family, I think I'm the sane one, but I'm still labeled the crazy one. So I know what you mean.
Yeah. Is there anybody that hasn't had a chance to talk yet in the audience? Maybe your camera is off. Does any of you want to say anything? I don't want to call you by name, but anyone else that we haven't heard from yet? Susan.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I just wanted to go back to what Nicole was just talking about cognitive dissonance, because I think this is also a point with healthcare professionals. For them who have been prescribing these meds for years to suddenly think about, oh, maybe I've been doing harm to my patients, that's really hard for them to take in. And unless they get support from other peers and see movies like this and get other information, it's very difficult for them to change that, because it's so enmeshed in their thinking and in what society in general thinks of this.
Well, I say all the time that, it's not the part about this that isn't forgivable. Let me see if I'm saying that right. What is unforgivable is not that the prescribers and PAs and nurse practitioners and doctors didn't know this, because they are victims too. They were not trained properly. The information was hidden from them. The studies were twisted and distorted, so they purposely got wrong information. So they are victims in that sense. But for me, what is unforgivable is being told and being provided the information, being brought journals and the Ashton Manual and all of these things that exist now that validate that this is real, and still choosing not to believe the patient that is sitting in front of you, presenting you with that information. That is the unforgivable part, not the ignorance to begin with.
Yeah. They need that groundswell of what you're doing here. What we're trying to do is get people aware more and more, because it's such a pushback from their peers. If they want to make a stand, it's really difficult for them even.
And I will say there are lots of physicians who do listen to their patients, and who, when you come in, like I said, I got a wonderful apology from a psychiatrist who had nothing to do with what happened to me. She was just the one left cleaning up the mess. I went to her, and she has helped me for the past 10 years with my withdrawal, and was completely open-minded, believed what I said, did her own research, everything. So there are medical professionals who are allies and who are good, and they listen and they believe and they help. And unfortunately, there's some too that refuse. So there is work to be done, but you're right. I think it's very difficult to come forward as a medical professional and say I was wrong about that and I probably harmed people. So.
Well, I think, let's see, what time is it? 3 to 4:15. So we're right at 1 hour.
Angie, while we're talking about that, do you remember that clip you played from Sandy Steingard?
Which clip?
Where Sandy is a
yeah.
psychiatrist. Do you have that?
I can find it. You talk, I'll go find it.
Yeah, because I think that's a perfect thing to play. I had never heard it before until you played it for me the other day. But yeah, if anyone has anything else to share while Angie's looking for that.
Nicole, I wanted to ask you, you said you've got a psychiatrist that did work with you, did learn. How did you find that person? I've looked in my area and had no luck so far.
Yeah, well, I say all the time when I talk about this that I think I'm privileged in a way that most people are not. I come from a medical family and I have medical training myself. And so I think that helped me quite a bit to find, physicians who would listen to me, although I struggled. I mean, I went through many, many, many doctors and had the same horrific experiences that I see people reporting online, that they were disbelieved, that they were told they were making it up, all of that. So I did have to go through many, many doctors, but I finally eventually did find one. And then there's actually a couple around this area. Dr. Bohan, who I interviewed not too long ago on our Facebook channel, or live video, he lives, like 45 minutes away and practices as well. I would say if people are looking, there are some doctors lists that are forming. I know Benzo Info Coalition keeps one that we add to all the time. ICEP is another one that has practitioners listed. Mad in America has a providers list. Surviving Antidepressants has a providers list. And then the other thing I would recommend is you can, if you're in any of the support groups, post and say, this is my location. Does anybody, and is anyone near me within an hour driving distance? And do you have a doctor that is helping you, that believes you, that understands this? The physician that I'm talking about that did work with me and understood these issues, and when I first met her, she didn't know much at all. But the difference was from her and the ones that I had seen before is she was willing to learn. And so she did the research. I provided her information. She went out on her own and found everything she could read, and then came to her own conclusions like, oh my gosh, this is a big, big problem. So you might not find one that is fully educated and aware, but just the willingness, might be the key. And then being in touch with, that's what's so great about the internet, is that we can all find each other now and communicate. And there's so many groups and things where, we can say, this is a good one, go see them, or this one, I went to this one, don't bother because you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, the experience of not being believed by doctors once you realize what the problem is, it's adding trauma on top of trauma. I mentioned that it feels like I've been the victim of mental rape for many years, and when I finally find out what the problem is, it's like somebody going into their local police station and saying, I was raped last night and I even have all the evidence for you to prove that I was raped. And then the police officer saying, oh, no, you weren't. No, that couldn't have happened. That didn't happen. And you're like, I know it happened. And here's all the evidence as to why it happened. And you get to the point where you just don't even want to bring it up with doctors because the interaction is so triggering. to, I still bring information into my primary care physician, and he's slowly come around, but he's in that stage of cognitive dissonance because, he's a kind person. He's a nice guy. I know he has one foot in and one foot out. He believes me, and he believes that the harm has happened to me, but he can't reconcile the fact that it may have happened to most of the patients that he sees and that he prescribes drugs to. I think it's just too painful for him to come to that point.
Well, one good thing too, it's not good because people are being harmed, but Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you guys have seen his story, but withdrawal and injury from these medications does not discriminate. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're famous or if you have money or you're poor. Like, if you take these medications, you're at risk for this. And unfortunately, some, famous folks have fallen down this trap, but they're speaking out. So I think that's huge. This could have happened to him and he could have just kept it secret, but the fact that he's come forward and he's telling his story and warning is a big, public health service, I think, and we'll probably see more of that, in time.
Well, Nicole, I think that interview you did with Mark Horowitz recently is so powerful. Dr. Mark Horowitz, the psychiatrist. I plan on forwarding that interview to tons and tons of people, medical providers, mostly, because, to see a psychiatrist himself go through withdrawal and wake up to the fact that, the meds have done him harm himself, and then to turn his story around into good by doing research on withdrawal. And I thank you for that interview. That was a fantastic one.
Yeah, Mark is great. I think any psychiatrist, there's a couple of them who have actually taken the meds and they've come forward and said they were harmed themselves. So we need to get behind them and support them, because that's huge.
I cannot find the minute mark for when Sandy said that, but you want me to just share what the gist of it was? I tried, but I'm missing the whole conversation too. Basically, I was listening to Anatomy of a Psychiatrist. It's on the Mad in America podcast, and it was Sandy Steingard, because she worked with us to do a presentation at an addiction conference recently. So I was just doing like background research on Sandy to like learn more about her. And so there's this part of the podcast where she beautifully says, like, I have realized that I may have profited off of harming people, and I don't want to do that ever again. And I want to give back and like help fix this kind of thing. Right? Nicole, do you remember what else she said? It just really was healing for me to hear this. And I sent it to Nicole immediately. I was like, oh my God, listen to this, So I'll put that in the chat box if you want to hear it, but I can't find the exact moment when she said it.
Yeah, I don't remember, and I don't want to misquote her, but it was, hearing it was like, wow, there definitely are, it'll just give you some perspective, I think, into a psychiatrist that sort of is willing to consider that, they have harmed people, and sort of the waking up process of what we're talking about right now, how we wish they could all see and hear and believe and listen.
Well, I'm going to give one more chance to anyone who's not spoken yet. Anybody with their camera off, I can leave you anonymous if you like to just come on sound, or you can type something in the chat box, whatever you want. But we're at like an hour, at an hour. So we might close out here in a minute. Anybody else? Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that's the beauty of this film. I'm so grateful that you, Lynn, Wendy, Nicole, Angie, and so many have put this together, because it sparks conversation, which is key. So you can show it at a hospital during a lunch for people who happen to be there and they can see it, they start talking. You show it to all kinds of places. It's just, that's the beauty of that, and I'm very, very appreciative for that.
Yeah, we always say that it's the best part. Like the film unto itself is a great thing, but then to have the discussion afterwards. I'll never forget one of my favorite in-person screenings was at Advocacy Unlimited in Connecticut. And we, in those early days, we didn't want to record any of the discussions because they were so vulnerable and so many different points of view that we just felt like if we put a camera in the middle of that, it would kind of ruin it. So the pandemic has been a blessing in that we can record the conversations, but also a curse because we can't see the audience. But I'll never forget that one screening in particular. There was a woman, I'm going to keep them as anonymous as possible. There was a woman who is a professor at a very prestigious university. She taught pre-med students. Next to her, she brought with her a child and adolescent psychiatrist who is a clinical, he's in clinical practice. In the same row, then there's a guy who is in active Adderall withdrawal, whose doctor just ripped him off of Adderall the week before and is like sweating and moving and he can't stop moving and like sitting right in this row. And then next to him was a lawyer who defends people who are getting medicated against their will. So it felt like the movie kind of evened the playing field, right? There's no power differential. We all sat and watched the same movie. We all experienced that from our own point of view, but now we have to talk about it. And like, you can run out of the room if you want to, but like, here's this thing and we want to talk about it, So it was very interesting. The woman said, I want my pre-med students to see this before they are ruined. That's what she said. The psychiatrist said, this is kind of controversial too, what he said. He said, I try to argue with parents to not put their kids on drugs. And guess what? They want their kids on drugs. They do not want the harder way. They come seeking drugs. That is a fact. Some I'm able to talk out of it. A lot of them I'm not, which is hard to hear that, Then the guy said, I can't even find a doctor to help me taper safely. Like, what is going on here? Every doctor I call, they don't want nothing to do with me. I just want to be tapered safely. They think I'm a drug addict. I took it like the way I was supposed to. So like all of that is happening in the same room, which is amazing. And in the same audience, everybody is watching. And I think if I had to estimate, we've done 115 screenings. We've probably reached 10,000 people since July of last year, which is pretty remarkable, I think. But there's millions in the world. So like, how do we get to those millions? That's the hard part.
That part about what you say, Angie, the conversation where the doctor says like people want these pills. I have like a sort of like a visceral reaction in the film when I'm having a
Shalimar's doctor says.
Oh, was it Shalimar's doctor?
I don't know which
no, it was one of the experts.
Anna Lemke.
Yes, she says that I don't want to misquote her, but it's something to the effect of people ask for these or they want the quick fix. And it's like, it makes me, when I hear that kind of thing, it does sound like a little patient blaming to me. Like, well, they come, they want it, they want the quick fix. But at the same time, it's like, well, no one is willing to examine where that came from. Like, patients didn't just wake up one day and decide they want a pill. Like, this was advertised. You turn on the TV, it's all over telling you, ask your doctor for this and this and this. And could you possibly have sleep-wake disorder? And, so it was like taught to us and pounded in it's a societal problem, and also, it's not 100% true. Yes, some patients do ask for things for those reasons we've just discussed, but there were plenty of times, like what you just said, Janice, when you went to the doctor, you didn't ask for anything and it's offered to the patient. So it's not all, I get really sensitive when it's implied that, the patients brought this upon themselves. They want it, they ask for it. And that's the only way that people wind up in this predicament, because it's just not true.
True.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Nicole. I mean, I never asked or begged or pleaded it was just always presented as a medication was solution to my suffering. That was, I had these doctors, these psychiatrists over the years that all seemed very intelligent, all very empathetic. They were empathetic to what I was telling them, and they were listening. And the solution was, well, let's change you onto this medication, or let's give you, let's up this dose and reduce that dose. And so I get really sensitive to that too. I mean, because I just, I saw 5 different psychiatrists over 30 years, affiliated with prestigious institutions. And that was how it was presented, was this is the solution to your emotional suffering.
I was told so many times, when we find the right drug, you'll be fine. And I also had ECT at one time, and the doctor who did my ECT explained the ECT as, we're going to scramble your brain and then you're going to feel better. Well, the first part he was right about. They scrambled my brain, but that was his version of informed consent, was to tell me that and then have me sign the consent form.
Yeah. I just attended the other night. He presents himself as a mental health advocate, a fellow by the name of Gabe Howard. I think I can mention his name, who identifies as having bipolar. And he gave a presentation to our community virtually the other day. And during the discussion afterwards, there were 3 or 4 people, patients, and then some parents, that were like, well, yeah, it's a really, it's a long road to haul. I mean, you got to get on the right combination, and that tinkering with that combination can take years. It can take many years. And I just wanted to pull my hair out, because I was on that tinkering treadmill for decades of, well, let's just adjust this and add this, and to see others going through that and still believing that the answer is this chemical soup that where the perfect recipe hasn't been found yet for that individual is, like Dave says in the film, it's like a exercise in like alchemy, like trying to make gold out of nothing. And it's just so sad that people are trapped in that mindset.
Gina, you want to share?
I guess it's time for me to chime in. I've been real sick, so bear with me. But, Nicole, to your point that, folks show up asking for them, my story is very different than that. I went to my doctor because I had sinuses, and I left with a prescription of antidepressants and a referral to a psychiatrist. And somehow I believed, when he told me I was depressed, I believed it. And my life was really good, but I was brought up to believe what your doctor told you. And if it was a chemical imbalance, then the doctor must have known something that I didn't, and I didn't question it. And within 6 months, I was suicidal. And so then I started believing everything that they told me. And 28 years on, I've been off about the same time as Angie, 4.5, almost 5 years. And it wrecked my life, so it really, all of it is hurtful, but that's definitely, that's just blaming. Sure, there's plenty of people that show up asking for it, but it's just wrong to approach things like that. Too many people are being hurt.
All right, well, should we wrap it up? I think, does anybody have any final thoughts? Questions about the film, anything?
I just wanted to say real quick to John's last point, the combination, that we have to find the perfect combination is so, that's like the most unevidence-based thing. Because all the evidence we have, we know that the people most likely to have adverse drug effects are taking combinations of medications, right? So polypharmacy, we know that. And if any physician disagreed with that, it would just be like going against, what everybody agrees is true. And then we also know that, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, we don't study drugs in combination, right? So we have no evidence whatsoever that A, B, D, and F mixed together in a white male who's 50 or a black male who's 35 or whatever we don't know what happens when you do that for 4 weeks or 6 months or 3 years. So to say that is just like, it just goes in the face of what we do accept as science in medicine.
And that's where psychiatrists would argue, well, that's the art of being a psychiatrist, right?
Right.
The art of my clinical experience, I've found ways to do that. And you're right, it's not evidence-based medicine. It's opinion.
It's what?
It's opinions.
Yeah. Well, I feel the need to share my list. Check this out. This is what the drug, these are all the ones that I was put on.
Wow.
And they
Guess
think
you didn't need them for life, huh?
What? No,
Guess you didn't need them for life, huh?
No, I didn't, but all of that in your body in 13 years leaves damage behind it. You don't just come off and then go back to life and everything's happy. It does not work like that.
There's one particular outpatient program that I've done 3 times now, and there's one psychiatrist that oversees the whole program, and she puts everybody on Abilify. That's her go-to drug. And I guess she doesn't realize that the patients talk among themselves, and we all know that she puts everybody on Abilify. And it kind of comes back to this thing of the psychiatrist knows best. She knows that's her favorite drug to give everybody. And so, it's like a cookie cutter approach. Even if Abilify were some wonderful drug, doesn't mean that everybody who comes into the program is a candidate for that one drug.
Yeah, well, it's been wonderful spending this afternoon with all of you. Thank you so much for your support. Nicole, do you want to talk about the shirts really quick before we hang up?
Oh yeah, for those of you who bought a shirt, I went to the screen printer this week and they're planning to print them by Thanksgiving, well, to ship them, I think by Thanksgiving. So you guys should have them by, I would say, the end of this month or the first week of December. Yeah, and thank you so much for purchasing one. If you did, all of us are excited to get ours too at the film. So
I will wear it with pride.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. That's awesome. And then if you have any emotional vulnerability hangover after we get off and you want me to edit you out, just send me an email and I will happily. But just know that your stories are not in vain, and that when this goes on YouTube and people see it, there's strength in numbers when we share our pain and our voices. I mean, just that collective cry is just so healing, and we didn't do anything. So thank you for just being heroic and brave and sharing your story, and keep doing it. Don't be quiet. We need more of us to talk. Thank you. All right.
Thanks for the movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your Saturday. I'll see you soon, Gina.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.